Thank you very much. And whatever I have achieved with the help or on the back of people who work with me. And you will see that in the first slides, because the first part of this presentation is stolen from Rainer Fersen. And one could argue that the beginning of FishBase is a collection of cards where I had written on the growth parameters of fish, because at the time I was doing my dissertation on comparing the growth of fish of different species, because I wanted to get to see the pattern of growth in fish, because I had realized working in Indonesia there were too many fish to study them one by one. So I wanted to get the pattern, and we would be able to infer on that. And that was the beginning. And this information, we thought it would be a good idea to make it available to other people. And so we met in 87, in 87, and we thought if we made this material available to people, this would also, the information would ameliorate the management of fisheries. And I wrote this into the plan of FishBase, of ICLAM, because at the time ICLAM was doing a great plan of what it was going to do. And that was the first description. And we were planning to cover 250 species, 2,500 species, the commercial species. Rainer quickly disabused me of that, and we decided to do all species in the world. We built on a number of erroneous assumptions that the taxonomy of fish was sorted out. It was only a question of using it, that the expert would willingly help us, that technology was not a problem, that after 5 years it would be done, and that 500 fisheries managers would be the client, the target group, and that we can hand over the product to a group that would take it over from there, and that we would then go on to do other things. I will not detail the reality of this thing, because you are laughing about it, and you know that each of these assumptions was wrong. But we made a few correct assumptions. One of them is that it would have to be, as Connie said, it would have to be an open website. You don't have to register, and it's free. And these were items that people resisted against. We had lots of advisors otherwise, and we didn't follow the advice, and it turned out to be right. Now, I'm actually a fisheries person, and in fisheries, the key point is that you have to know the catch. The catch is the main reason why you fish, and you have to know the catch. But there are people who argue that you don't, and these are mainly the people who are into stock assessment, who think that you need to know the biomass, and the catch is not needed, because if you know the biomass, then you can infer what the catch should be next year, and you don't actually need to monitor the catch. But these people, guess where these people work? This was a paper from a paper published, from a map published in 2009. I modified it by simply highlighting the area where they have few data points, and this map was the one that they used for inference on the status of fisheries of the world. And you have to appreciate the silliness of it. The fisheries of the world were being assessed based on Europe and Alaska and the USA and Australia, with no reference to Asia, Africa, and in Latin America, where all the major fisheries of the world. This was published in Science and was a very influential paper saying that fisheries are in good shape on the basis of assessment. Actually, when you look at catches which are available for these countries, the picture looks different. However, catches have to be a little bit improved because the countries that are member of FAO, which has the only database of catches in the world, the countries don't submit very reliable catches. And so we have engaged in the last 10 years in a massive project, again, also a project not involving money, a project involving interaction, collaboration with about 400 people in the world, in all countries in the world. We have done a reconstruction of the catch from the bottom up of the catch of the world. In the Philippines, we have presented last year the result at an event organized by BIFA. And the difference between these catches is enormous. So if you, for example, look at the catches that are attributed in a FAO database, that is the database from countries that put together, the catches that are attributed to countries is about half the catches that are made by these countries. What is missing usually is artisanal and subsistence catches and discounts. But in addition to this, in Africa, the catch of foreign fisheries represent half of the catch that are made in these countries. So if you use the reported catches to make inference on West African fisheries, you miss 3/4 of the catch. 3/4 of the catch. It is not as bad in other regions of the world, but it is very important for the world that is so in Africa, because it has become the breadbasket or the fish basket of the world. All other countries go fish in West Africa. What is this? It moves on its own. The result of all the reconstruction, I will not go into the detail because the paper is still in review, is that we have about 50 to 60% more fish that is being caught internationally, and the decline is much stronger than is normally assumed. Now, if the link fisheries base is now going to be established, this is important that you realize that in ecosystem, fluxes exist that are generated by phytoplankton at the base of the food web, and these fluxes move up, and about 90% is lost at every trophic level. So the fish that we fished are usually trophic level 4, trophic level 3.5, trophic level 3, and we have, and that is an extraordinary achievement, we have trophic level for all fish in FishBase and all invertebrates, quasi all invertebrates, because we infer from the diet composition on the trophic level, and for the other that we don't have diet composition, we infer from the trophic level of related species. And so with this, we can transform each catch, 1 ton of tuna is transformed into 10 tons of sardines that they ate, which is transformed into 100 tons of zooplankton, which is transformed in 1,000 tons of phytoplankton. So we can express all catches on the same basis. And we can then relate this phytoplankton that is caught everywhere, this phytoplankton that is caught in the form of fish everywhere, we can relate it to the primary production that is observed. And that's your satellite that you mentioned before. And when we do that, we have a situation that in the 50s, the coastal areas of the world were already quite well exploited, but the offshore areas were exploited only in industrialized area of the world, in Southeast Asia, and East Asia, in North America, North Atlantic. And now, here is our utilization of primary production in the world. This is, I will give it to you, Connie, you don't have to film it. This is very new, and it is based on reconstructed catches. This is available on our website, where the reconstructed catches, with the help of our new partners, Vulcan Inc. of Seattle and the Paul Island Family Foundation, are available. All these new catches are available in detail. And also, we have been able to good math and good publication that we have, to unravel the problem of fishing down. Because fishing down is a process that happens almost everywhere, of the big fish being fished first, and then the smaller fish being targeted. But this process can be easily masked by fishing offshore. When you have exploited the resource, that inshore you go offshore. For example, in the Philippines, there is a huge fishery of tuna outside of the Philippines that is landed in the Philippines. So if you use the Philippine catches, you would have the impression that the trophic level of the catch has not decreased because of this expansion. And this technique, the graph are not really made to be projected, but they are part of our website, is a new way of presenting the catches, the trophic level, and the trophic level inshore and further offshore and very much offshore are separated. And if you want to know the magic of it, you have to read the paper that was published in MEPS. But basically, we can now separate the offshore from the inshore from the catch data, and show that fishing down occurs even when it is masked by expansion. Then finally, I will talk briefly about global change, because climate change, because it affects fish very much, and we have been able to represent and capture the essence of climate change in fisheries with the help of information that we constructed from FishBase. It is well known that now the change in temperature are such that in the last 30 years the fish are moving poleward, because the temperature changes are such that the fish trying to maintain the environmental temperature are going to where the water is cooler. And in the North Sea, for example, that is a paper published in Science, in the North Sea that manifests itself in changes of 30 to 50 kilometers per decade. Okay? But there are hundreds of papers showing these changes, for example, in the Eastern Mediterranean. So we have mapped all fish distribution of the world, or rather all fish that occur in catch statistics in the world. We have mapped them, and importantly, we have mapped them without reference to temperature and primary production. So once they're mapped, we superpose them on an atlas of temperature, and we can, for example, for this kind of fish, we will see that 15 degree is its preferred temperature. The tail are very fat, because actually they don't occupy the southern end and the northern end of the distribution the whole year, but it looks like they do. They occupy the southern end and the northern end of the distribution after a year. It's only at the center that they are always. So we have for each fish a certain temperature. We get fields of temperature changes in the future, and we get a change, a modification that is here in 2 steps, but it actually occurs, is simulated for year to year. So a fish that occurs in northern Taiwan, that doesn't occur in China, that doesn't occur in North Korea, that doesn't occur in Japan and North Korea, ends up doing that, occurring in the Bohai Sea, in North Korea, in southern Japan, and not anymore in Taiwan. And this is done again and again for all fish of the world. And what you end up with is this map, a map like this, yes, a map like this, which is the first map of ocean changes or fisheries changes under global warming. And the map was so new and so interesting that it actually made it into the summary for policymakers of the IPCC. We are very proud of that. You can, what is important in this map is that the intertropical belt has predicted a reduction in catches. And this is absolutely scary, because if you did the same thing for agricultural production, rice production, you would have the same thing. So basically, the prediction for global change are the same for terrestrial system and marine system. And one can't generalize, because we also demonstrated in Nature in 2013 that the changes that we predicted are already happening. We predicted that by looking at the catch changes in the catch in terms of temperature, the so-called mean temperature of the catch. We calculated the temperature that is implied by the catch composition that we had. And we could show that in the last 30 years, the temperature of the catch has changed. And basically, we have as a prediction for the for temperate areas to the left, that basically in temperate area they lose the cold water fish, and the warm water fish becomes predominant because they move in from the tropics. But from the in the tropics, they lose only the subtropical fish, and then there is no other fish that can replace them. And basically, then in the tropics, the species dropped one after the other. And this process has already begun of species dropping out, but in most cases you don't know it because nobody studies the tropical fish in great detail. And that is all I want to show now. You can look at our website, seaarounders.org. It has enormous detail on the catches and the distribution in the world, and increasing linkages with FishBase and seaarounders and Sea Life Base, because this is the interface or this is the basis on which lots of our analysis are done. And in fact, now we through Deng, we actually are increasing traffic between our two database because this is needed by what we do now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pauly, for sharing with us your reflections on the decisions that have led to the success of FishBase, and also for sharing with us researches using FishBase and Sea Life Base that have inspired great works and products for marine biodiversity and fisheries education and research. I would now like to open the floor for questions from the audience. Who would like to ask the first question? Yes, please, ma'am.
Good morning, everybody. I am Professor Divine Reyes, the Dean of the ADCOM Arts of Mater Redemptoris College. I have my brother students there, and also I am a faculty internship director of the Manila Times College. My question, sir, is the way things are going, and you have been exerting all effort towards the improvement of projects which are within your jurisdiction. How do you see other countries, just like the Philippines, deeply collaborate in all of what you've been doing, just like what the Philippines is doing, sir? How do you see the way that they have collaborated with you?
Our project is one of the few research activity of this type that is global in nature. So we have not worked within our jurisdiction, which is Canada. In fact, lots of people are mad with us because of that. But rather we have worked with people from 200 countries and territories, ranging from Antarctica, where then again has great relationship to people in Southeast Asia, to people in Africa, to people in Latin America. And we have made use of our personal contacts that we have, and we have managed to motivate about 150 first authors from different countries to donate a huge amount of their time to make this catch reconstruction. And this is truly the only research project that doesn't have a national component, because you have not heard me talk about Canada. This is a project based in Canada. We get no Canadian funds. I get no fund from Canada for something like that, and it is based entirely on an international network of friends and colleagues. And insofar, it is. I hope it will be considered to be one of the achievements of our disciplines and of humankind, even, because this is really all people working together. This is not one country projecting itself onto others. So the Philippines got lots of emphasis because we have worked before in the Philippines, because we have lots of Filipinos in our teams. But if you look at the work we do in West Africa or in other countries in Southeast Asia, you would also be impressed. Yeah.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Drus Bayate from BFAR. When I came to BFAR, there was no stock assessment project anymore with Dr. Daniel Pauly. But with your recent reconstruction effort on the data, what is its implication on our continuing work on stock assessment? We know that the landed catch is still the cheapest way to make an estimate. And you think we need to do some adjustments because of these findings?
Yes, we do. Last year we had a workshop that was organized by Deng, and where we spoke with stakeholders in Philippine fisheries, and we argued that a reshaping of Philippine statistics will be necessary. One thing that was really questionable was that in the catch of small-scale fishes is linked to fixed ratio to the catch of so-called commercial fishes. And so if the catch of commercial fishes increase, for example, because they go catch in Indonesia and it is reported a Philippine catch, then automatically the catch of Philippine fishes, small-scale fishes who do not travel abroad is increased. There are few developing countries, poor countries, or not rich countries that are doing a good job with the catch statistics. And one example is India. It has over 30 years, or 50 years, it has done a sampling in villages that are raised to the total. And I think that the Philippines will have to rethink the way statistics are made. And in fact, we were going to have a workshop at the end of the week about this with BFAR, but the person who was going to run this workshop has stayed behind because of this hurricane that is barreling onto Florida. So we will have to think about how to advise BFAR on how to cheaply but effectively choose another way of obtaining fishery statistics because it's not right.
Okay, I'll take full advantage of my time here. It's been 5 years since we haven't been fishing in other Indonesian waters. Our fishing agreement didn't push through. Most of our stakeholders now are fishing in High Seas Pocket 1 in the Western Pacific. And we do get landed catch data from the WCPFC area in collaboration with other members of the convention area. Now, in the case of the domestic fisheries data of the Philippines, we do have a municipal fishing catch, and I think Dr. Paul is very familiar with this. I've reviewed a lot of his literature. And also, we have the commercial fishing industry. But my personal opinion is there is not really that big difference between the municipal and the commercial catches of the Philippines, noting that the size of the vessels are not really that big as those in Europe or in other countries. Now, in the case of the Philippines, our municipal fishing vessels are also very small, and including our commercial, when we base it on the sizes of vessels in other countries. Now, when it comes again to the how far they go fishing, there's a lot of mix-up here, because according to the law, beyond 15 kilometers from the shoreline is the commercial fishing. And from the shoreline up to 15 kilometers is the municipal. But in reality, the commercial vessels fish in the municipal waters because these are the most productive waters.
Yep.
The municipal waters. So I think your idea of reconfiguring or making an adjustment will not really apply to our vessels fishing outside the Philippines, especially because the delineation of the waters between Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines is already there. And second, you've heard from the news that Indonesia had been burning Filipino vessels that enter their fishing grounds. So I think there's a lot indeed of adjustments to be made. However, we exert a lot of effort to have a good relative estimate of the catches. And indeed, the BFAR was able to successfully amend the law. We have stiffer penalties, more than $1 million, almost cost the neck of my boss, because the law has been effective in 2014. So thank you. I think that indeed we need a lot of adjustment in our stock assessment program, which I know Dr. Pauly has been there when it was conceptualized and when it initially started. Thank you.
Yeah. So there was a lot of technical question in your comment. I will simply say that when we do this reconstruction, we do not have to respect the pieties that you have a problem with in some government that you cannot admit that fishing illegally goes on. If the Indonesian burn 5 vessels, it doesn't mean that the other vessels are not there. It precisely means that they were vessels and that they caught 5 of them. So trust me, there is lots of illegal fishing going on. But BFAR, as a government entity, cannot write down that much has been caught in Indonesia. But we can, and we have, and I leave the detail of this to further discussion. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, that's all the time we have for this session. Thank you, Dr. Pauly, and thank you to the audience for your questions.